Hey guys, this is your host Eric. Today we are going to watch action genre movie called Ambulance. Spoilers ahead, turn on your subtitle, I greatly appreciate your support. Enjoy the video. The film begins with Wolf, a retired veteran who becomes unemployed after retirement. At the time, his wife was critically ill and required immediate surgery, but Will was too poor to pay the bill and had to call the hospital. When the hospital realized he didn't have any money, they immediately disconnected the phone. What a bunch of ungrateful capitalist bastards they are. Will has no choice but to seek assistance from his best friend Danny, who works as a personal bodyguard for a wealthy lawyer. Danny's day job entails primarily looking after his luxury vehicles. Willie is in a lot of pain. Seeing a house full of luxury cars is awe-inspiring. Danny stated that they had lived and died for their country but were treated unfairly by the system. When Danny's teammates arrived, they all got their weapons ready. It was later revealed that these individuals were planning a bank robbery. Danny persuades Will to join their gang, but Will refuses. Danny stated that all he needed to do was drive while the gang took care of the rest, and we had no choice but to accept. So they began their mission first. They drove by a parking lot and came to a halt. Danny and his associates pretended to be bank employees infiltrating the establishment. Unfortunately, 2 police officers came by the bank. Because he wasn't feeling well, one of the cops decided to wait outside. The other person came in and inquired as to why the bank was closed today. Danny's associates are now hiding inside the building. There are also a few assassins hiding beneath the desk, threatening to shoot if they don't stop talking. Captain Monroe was unaware of this and began flirting with the bank employee. He initiated a conversation by saying, "I'd like to invite you to dinner," but the girl declined because it was inconvenient for her. Monroe noticed the staff nameplate on the counter and immediately felt something was wrong. Danny then pulled out a pistol and threatened Monroe. "Don't try anything because we have 2 automatic machine guns aimed at you." The bank has a total of 32 million customers. Danny's associates broke into the vault and stole all of the diamonds, gold, and silver. Danny's teammate was signaled to pick them up, but the car broke down in the middle of the road. Monroe's partner noticed this and offered to assist with the car's repair, but then he noticed Danny shouting as his teammates retreated. Monroe's partner was about to open fire when the driver hit the police car. The driver kept shooting at the man who had helped him. Following that, the 2 sides engaged in a gun battle. The officers on patrol in the area heard the gunshots and rushed to the scene. "I couldn't get through the front gate." Danny returns to the bank and escapes via the elevator. Outside, the scene was extremely chaotic. At the moment, the female lifeguard and her colleague were also given the order to go to the bank in order to save people. Several dozen police vehicles and special forces were dispatched to the scene. Danny kidnapped Officer Monroe and ran down the parking lot. Special forces soldiers attacked at the same time, blocking the entrance. The gang's driver was immediately shot in the head. Monroe felt compelled to attack Danny as a hero. Danny nearly got his $$ whooped. Will, fortunately, opened fire and shot Monroe. Will feels terrible for rescuing Danny, but Danny advises him to get in the car as soon as possible. If not, everyone will perish. They had no choice but to leave. The gang suffered numerous casualties and was nearly completely whipped out. The news of the bank robbery spread quickly. All roads were quickly blocked by police, special forces, and detectives. Danny took a look and then quickly left. They are surrounded on the inside. Meanwhile, Will was wondering if there was a gunfight on the rooftop. There are already 7 SWAT officers ready to strike. Helicopters are also patrolling the skies. The SWAT team began breaking down the door as well. Officer Mark then quickly discovered Monroe, who was lying on the ground. Monroe had lapsed into a coma at this point. Many officers rushed into the building in turn. The investigators also tracked Danny's whereabouts as he planned an attack. Danny and Will are forced to run back to the parking lot at this point. Cam, a sexy medical staff member, then arrived to save Officer Monroe. However, as they were about to drive the ambulance away, Danny opened fire to block the road, prompting the special forces to pursue the vehicle. Danny attempts to flee through the parking lot, but is stopped by. Danny and Will are getting ready to die. When the investigating officer opened the car door, he saw Cam screaming loudly that the patient was in critical condition. "So go find yourself. Cam has just saved the robber of their lives, who has died." Danny apologized to Cam before smiling and saying he didn't mean to point the gun at her. "Since then, I've been gentle. I'm not too bad. I'm all set." The ambulance did not dare to go on the highway, instead running down an alley to avoid the helicopter patrol. Cam took advantage of the opportunity to flee by spraying the fire extinguisher at Will. Then Danny quickly pointed a gun at her, threatening her, but Monroe suffered a heart attack, forcing Cam to return to save him. While speaking with the police, 4 people took off again. The officer in charge of the investigation discovered that the ambulance had been robbed. Throughout the flight, the helicopter monitors the ambulance with a thermometer. The technician then informed the officers that the ambulance has a V8 engine and can travel at high speeds. Cops were forced to dispatch additional helicopters to coordinate with other police patrols. Another cop eavesdropped on the conversation inside the car at the same time. The ambulance had just arrived on the main road when it was forced to turn around by a chain of police cars. They were forced to turn around and confront the officers. When the cops realized this, they did not dare to confront the ambulance and had to avoid it. As a result, a number of police cars flip over, causing extensive damage. Cam tried CPR from Monroe at this point, but it didn't work. Danny had to run to the back to assist two people in coordinating CPR for the police officer who was running at high speed on the ambulance. Danny returned to the driver's cab after finishing CPR. The car then came to a stop, but we had time to brake, allowing the ambulance to stop right in front of us, because the police car chasing them did not stop in time. They all fell off the cliff. They took advantage of the situation by immediately reversing the car and fleeing. Danny had no choice but to contact the gang boss William. Danny currently has $16 million in the hopes that William can assist him and has agreed to split the money. William inquired as to how he could assist Danny. Danny instructed William to send the boys over to distract the cop, the boss, when he found out he could make that easy and sweet money. He immediately ordered the boys to begin gearing up. Danny called his garage worker friend again and asked him to drive the fastest car to save him. The helicopter was closing in on him at this point. The police chief followed the ambulance closely. Will has no way out of the enemy's encirclement. Danny was about to shoot the cop when Cam intervened. He became enraged and threatened. "Do you want to die?" Cam yelled from the car floor. The ambulance circled the intersection, frantically calling out to the surrounding traffic and destroying countless police officers. Danny went insane, opened the car door, and used Cam as a hostage to threaten and chase the sheriff. "I'll blow the chick's head off if you dare to shoot me." The sheriff is forced to back down as a temporary compromise. Danny quickly returned to the driver's cab. At this point, the cop directed that the highway be closed. The two state police departments needed to collaborate. Danny had been involved in a bank robbery since he was 17 years old, according to the investigation department. Damn, at the age of 17, this guy is already playing real-life GTA while I'm sitting here making dump per cap. His father, it turns out, was a sniper who killed 6 bankers and 3 cashiers. Danny's classmate is the FBI agent, so he understands why Danny is so reserved. Danny simply wants a simple life and does not wish to cause harm to anyone. Nonetheless, the man decided to steal. He has robbed 37 banks in the last 10 years. It is now the 38th bank. Monroe was in a critical situation at this point, with the entire car floor soaked in blood. Cam then calls her senior doctor, who is on vacation, and asks how to treat the wound in case she is up to no good. Throughout the ordeal, Danny is forced to point a gun at her head. The doctor then uses a video call to instruct Cam on how to perform the surgery while riding in an ambulance at the speed up, because Will was a war veteran. The investigation officer overheard the conversation as well. While Danny was driving, he decided to use his skills to assist Cam. Cam will perform the surgery slowly in order to avoid any mishaps. She then began looking for the bullet. Monroe could die in 60 seconds if the entire process accidentally ruptures the spleen. "I can do it," Cam exclaimed loudly. The spleen burst shortly after, and the computer also ran out of. That was perfect timing. Everyone assumed Monroe had died. When the investigative department staff found out, they were furious and decided to murder Danny and Will. Cam was summoned by the police and told to quickly hide beneath the stretcher, but she refused, claiming she had saved Monroe's life. The staff of the investigation department didn't care and decided to shoot anyway. The police then ordered their combat comrades to temporarily retreat, leaving only 2 vehicles, posing a civilian near the ambulance. Danny then scolds the officer. "Monroe is nearly dead, but Cam saved his ass, and if you still want to shoot us cops, please apologize. We had no idea you had saved his life." Danny then gradually loses his mind. Cam begins to be sarcastic towards Danny, prompting Danny to open fire on her. Will then slam on the brakes, causing Danny's shot to miss. The 2 guys who were once best bros are now fighting in the car. Cam quickly called the cops while the 2 were fighting. At this point, the cop is conning Will into surrendering by telling him that he is a war veteran and that if he does not comply, he faces up to 30 years in prison. The cop advised him to consider his wife. The investigator then rushes to call Cam, revealing that Will is the weakness. Cam must therefore find a way to influence him. Will hastily called his wife to lie about looking for work. His wife informed him that a bank in the area had been robbed today, so be cautious. Will's heart softened as he looked at his son on the phone screen. Cam noticed this and inquired about his wife's situation. Will claims that the surgery is prohibitively expensive, not to mention the additional medical insurance and post-treatment expenses. The Williams gang was waiting for Danny under the bridge at this time. The police discovered that Will abruptly changed direction, assuming that the opponent was attempting to distract them. Danny got out of the car to attract the helicopter's attention. Danny opened fire as the plane was about to land, then climbed back into the car. The plane descended, but the ambulance swerved and swayed once more. They were chasing each other down the highway. They were eventually able to cut off the cop's tail and arrive at the location that William had previously set up. Other identical ambulances have been prepared here. Then 3 identical ambulances were driven out into the street by William's men. One person runs east, while the other runs west. This is deception. The 3 ambulance drivers have received extensive training. The entire situation frightened the cops. William's son abruptly jumped out of the car. The ambulance accelerated forward. Police discovered the driver fleeing, but an armored car was approaching them. Everyone was ordered to flee by the sheriff, but it was too late. The car's automatic Gatling gun then begins firing at the cop at a rate of 6,000 shots per second. The team's captain was brutally murdered. The situation was extremely tense. William was very satisfied after witnessing the massacre. Officer Mark is pursuing William's son, but they collide, and William's son is killed inadvertently. The clue has vanished, and the driver is William's son. Danny's ambulance then drives into William's secret hideout. William is distraught over his single death, whereas Danny is relieved that it is all over. Danny saw William's anguish and told him that it wasn't just his son who had died. I gave him the money, and he accepted it. Danny then gives William $8 million. At the moment, William overheard the recorded conversation and heard his subordinates say that cops were inside the ambulance. He began to question. "You brought a nurse and a cop, Danny." Will insisted on taking the nurse and the cop away because they had seen too much, but Danny isn't having it. William and his pals go all out monkey. William is forcing Danny to follow the shoot and kill rule, but he instead went all out, killing all of William's gang. Will is my brave brother who dares to be touched. Danny then shot William in the face to finish him off. Danny and Will dashed downstairs, guns drawn, to fight to the death with the rest of William's gang. Will had only just gotten into the car. Unfortunately, he was shot by a camera. Cam only realized she had shot the wrong person at that point. Danny charged at them, attacking and retreating at the same time. The ambulance was once on the run. The driver's cab now appears to be possessed by A. This time, the task force and the helicopter pursued. Nobody wanted to give up. There are outlaws on one side. On the other side, there is a special team out to avenge their fallen comrades. Will, on the other hand, was seriously injured. His heart is racing furiously. Cam had to perform first aid on him once more. The ambulance sped away once more, but this time they didn't want to get away. But first, to the hospital. Danny couldn't stand by and watch his brother bleed to death, so he pulled over right in front of the hospital gate. Several dozen police officers were close behind, and the task force quickly pursued dozens of SWAT soldiers who were aiming at the ambulance and could open fire on any of them. Danny notices a handgun in the car, but it's a police weapon, so he assumes Monroe. Will was shot. Danny kept pointing the gun at the cop's head. Cam admitted to being the one who shot Will. Danny is enraged and claims he turned against William for her sake. That's probably what happened when you were sipping. Finally, he vowed to murder Cam in front of the cops. Danny had only just opened the car door. Danny is the target of the snipers. He screamed and jumped out of the ambulance, but was hit in the chest by A. Danny was not killed by the sniper, but rather by Will. So much for being the best bro ever. Will, it turned out, had given Cam the stolen money before saying he wanted to give it to his wife. Will chooses to sell out his best friend, luring him into a trap. Following this, the Will was taken to the hospital and out of danger, despite the possibility of a 30-year prison sentence. But because Will has assisted the police in eliminating the bat, even though his sentence may be reduced to a few years at most, I can't help but feel sorry for Danny, even though he tries to rob bank. We really appreciate you watching. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notification bell because it is really important for us. Thank you.